Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Deku Joined the League of Villains. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Izuku just barely dodged Razor as her foot brushed by his hair. When she landed, she spun her other leg at him. But Izuku moved forward and caught it firmly in his arm. He then pulled her back to trip her, but Razor jumped and performed a flip kick which hit Izuku square in the chest. He flew back onto the mat. Not bad you little shit. You're improving. However, you need to work on your reaction speed, Razor explained coldly. A second is all it takes and then you're dead. Izuku glared at her and stood back up. Again, he demanded. Well, would you look at that, demanding something from me. It seems you've got a pair of balls after all, Razor said sounding amused. Did you grow them while I was training you? I'll leave that to your imagination, Izuku said sounding very annoyed. He had been training with Razor for months now and had progressed. He did not need to call Kurogiri as often anymore, because he could handle thugs all by himself. In spite of this, Razor insulted him at every opportunity by saying things such as God you're so weak, try harder you little shit, I swear even Tomura could kick your ass if you wanted to, too scared to stand up, when will you grow a pair of balls? The list went on and on. She was literally like Koch-chan. Well, almost. Unlike him, she pushed him to be better and wanted him to improve. Can we just get back to training? He asked impatiently. Razor grinned at Izuku. As much as I would love to kick the shit out of you again I can't. Sensei called us for a meeting, so we have to suspend training for the rest of today. Izuku was very annoyed at this. Don't give me that face, she snapped. There's nothing we can do about it. Now hurry up, or else that whiny little bitch Shigaraki will never let us hear the end of it. Judging from the sound of her voice, Izuku could tell she was angry. He would say he was surprised, but with the number of derogatory terms Razor had spewed about Tomura, it was clear she hated him. And again, Razor hated a lot of people, so it was nothing special. At the bar, Izuku gathered with Kurogiri, Razor and Tomura. They turned to the monitor where Sensei appeared. Good afternoon everyone, he announced. I trust you know why I've gathered you all here. No clue, Izuku and Razor replied in unison. And they meant it. The two had been completely absorbed in their jobs and training the past weeks, so they had not been paying attention to anything that happened in or out of the league. Tomura snickered while Kurogiri tilted his head to the side. It seems neither of you has been watching the news, Sensei realized. Just tell us already, Razor snapped impatiently. Sensei sighed and took a deep breath. All Might is taking up a teaching position at UA, he informed. Razor didn't react. Izuku however shifted slightly. That's right, the entrance exam was just a few days ago, he thought. That means Koch-chan is now a student there. Despite his hatred toward Katsuki, he knew the teen was skilled enough to get in, both in quirk and intelligence. That means he's going to be taught by All Might, Izuku realized. Despite having become a villain, he couldn't help but feel jealous. The hero he and Koch-chan idolized, the one who had rejected him, was now training the very person who had made his life hell to be a pro hero. Another good thing gets handed to Koch-chan on a silver platter. How the fuck is that fair? He wondered angrily. He's a total dick yet he still gets everything. In Izuku's mind, it just wasn't fair how everything went Katsuki's way, yet he did nothing wrong and still got screwed over. Razor interrupted his thoughts. And why is this important? She asked uninterestedly. Razor, please listen to everything Sensei says before judging, Kurogiri told her politely. Razor rolled her eyes. Go on. Tomura glared at her and started to say something when Sensei interrupted him. It is important, Razor, because All Might is one of our primary targets for elimination, he explained with a bit more fury. He is the biggest threat to our organization and our plans. Therefore, killing him is a top priority. Izuku was surprised. He had never seen Sensei angry before, he usually acted calm and hardly ever raised his voice. Then he suddenly remembered. 10 months ago, when he first met Sensei, he had told him about why he tried to kill himself, even about his encounter with All Might. Back then he had had a negative reaction also. With that time and this one, it was obvious that they were both related to All Might. Did something happen between them? Izuku wondered. He could tell that Sensei genuinely hated the number one hero. It was the same way he felt about Katsuki. Your organization, your plans, not mine, Razor pointed out. Do I need to remind you of my place here? No, Razor, you don't. However, until that time comes you will do and listen as I tell you, Sensei replied with authority. With that, she nodded in understanding. Izuku was confused. What was Razor talking about? Wasn't she a member of the league? I've been working with her months now, and I still don't know anything about her, he thought sadly. Despite training with her, Izuku knew very little about her. He didn't even know what her quirk was. He had tried asking her about some of these things, but she refused to answer. Razor made it clear that this was just training, there was no need for them to get personal with each other. Sensei, can you just ignore this bitch and get to the good stuff already? Tomoura asked rudely. However, Izuku detected a hint of excitement in his voice. Sensei sighed again. Earlier today I sent Tomoura and a few of his friends to UA to do a little investigating. Yeah, I destroyed the gate and let the press in. While the heroes were dealing with them, I managed to get a hold of some juicy info, he boasted with a childish sense of pride. But he did, Sensei told them. And what he learned was that tomorrow Class 1A will be conducting their rescue training in the unforeseen simulation joint. From the list Tomoura acquired it appears All Might along with Eraserhead and 13 will be there. Izuku recognized the names. Eraserhead was a hero who could stop any quirk just by looking at them. Aside from that, Izuku had seen videos of him that showed he was highly proficient in hand-to-hand combat. 13 was a hero dressed in a spacesuit that possessed a quirk known as Black Hole, which sucked any object into it and reduced it to dust. This was mainly used for rescue. Get to the point already, Razor said irritated. Tomorrow we shall launch an attack on UA, more specifically the area with All Might and the students, where we will kill the symbol of peace, Sensei said all in one go. Izuku was surprised at this. Kill All Might. He didn't think it was possible. He had watched nearly every video and read every report about him. He knew more than anyone that he was impossible to beat. How exactly do you plan to do that? Izuku asked nervously. Everyone turned to look at him. Is there a problem, Deku? Kurogiri asked. Tomoura was more hostile. What are you scared that your idol might die? Did you forget what group you're a part of now? He growled. Villains fight against heroes all the time. They try to catch us, we try to kill them. What did you think we'd be doing? Izuku flinched. Although he and Tomoura got along most of the time, he could still be hostile from time to time. I don't mean anything like that, he said quickly. I'm just curious. This is All Might we're talking about. Defeating him is practically impossible, killing him even more so. There was silence. Sensei laughed. You are mostly right, Deku, however, you are also wrong. It isn't impossible to do those things. There has simply never been anyone who could match All Might until now. Izuku was baffled. Did they have someone as strong as All Might? He wondered. It didn't seem likely, but not impossible. If they did, why had they not used them already? Then a thought struck him. Until now. Are you talking about my enhancement drug? He asked. Sensei nodded in confirmation. Izuku had spent several months working on the drug as well as other things, such as a regeneration drug for healing and an intelligence drug to make other members smarter. So far, he had increased the time limit to 30 minutes and decreased the side effects to 4.5 hours. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. When you add the drug to the mix, it does seem possible, he thought. Please continue, Sensei, he requested. Tomorrow Tomoura and Kurogiri will lead a group of villains to the USJ and kill All Might. Razor, your job is to guard the place where they are kept, he explained. Razor nodded in understanding. Tomoura was excited while Kurogiri remained indifferent. Izuku found Razor's behavior strange. She was usually the type to want to fight someone, yet here she was just accepting guard duty without any argument. He was also slightly curious as to what they were but said nothing. Deku, you will remain here and continue your work, Sensei informed him. Normally Izuku wouldn't object, however, he was curious about something. Sensei, do you have a list of the students attending that class? Izuku asked. Cause if you do, may I see it? Yes, there is, but why? He asked. Do you think that boy who wronged you will be there? Izuku nodded in confirmation. Despite his position in the league, Izuku wanted to go with them tomorrow and see if Katsuki was there. There were several reasons for this, of course. Flashback 4 months ago. Izuku landed flat on his back after Razor flipped him. He moaned in pain. Seriously, is this the best you can do, little shit? She sneered. Cause if it is, you will die the second you get dragged into a fight. Izuku glared at her. I swear this is all she ever does, insult me, he thought. Razor just stood there waiting for him to get up. Out of pure curiosity, Izuku started. This hellish training you're giving me. Did you go through it yourself to be the way you are now? Razor looked at him with cold eyes. We've already had this discussion. This is training, nothing more. You and I are not friends, Deku. So, stop trying to get to know me better, she replied icily. She meant what she was saying. There was absolutely no reason for him to know about her past or her personal life. Though that wasn't to say that she hated Izuku. Surprisingly enough, he had moved into her list of people she could actually stand, though that was mainly through her teaching him how to fight. She was amazed at how quick Izuku was learning. She even admitted to Kurogiri that she had underestimated his observational skills, something she did very rarely. I've known you for a few months now, but I still know nothing about you. I don't even know what your quirk is. I tried asking Kurogiri and Sensei, but they told me to ask you, he explained. Razor rolled her eyes in annoyance. Look, you little bastard, she growled murderously. There is nothing you need to know about me. There is nothing you will ever need to know about me, so give it a rest. Izuku felt intimidated by this but decided not to back down. Isn't there anything I can do to change your mind? He asked seriously. Razor groaned in annoyance. He really isn't gonna let this go, is he? She thought. What would change my mind? Razor didn't have any real reason to tell Izuku about her life. There wasn't much to tell, and most of it wasn't pleasant. However, no one had ever pushed to know as much as Izuku. Usually people didn't like her enough to ask. Razor didn't feel like just telling him though. She believed he should earn the right first. But how? Then a thought came to her mind, making her smile sadistically. Okay, there's one thing you can do, she informed him. You can show me the results of your training. Izuku looked slightly confused at this. He knew what she wanted him to do, but he couldn't figure out how to do it. I want you to fight someone, of course. However, it's who I want you to fight, she explained. The one I want you to fight is that bastard. You know, the one who turned you into the weak little shit you are now. Izuku froze. Fight Koch-chan. She wants me to fight Koch-chan, he thought. He had trained well enough that he could hold his own against most court individuals, but Katsuki, he was on another level. As if noticing the uncertainty in his eyes, Razor spoke up. Don't get the wrong idea. This is also for your sake, she told him. This confused Izuku. He was your primary tormentor, right? She asked. Izuku nodded in confirmation. Then facing him should be good for you. If you defeat him, then you will have overcome him, and he will no longer be someone you should fear, she said. If you can do that, then I'll tell you whatever you want to know. Izuku said nothing. He was still trying to process what Razor said. Alright, that's all for today, she said before turning to leave. Flashback end. Wanting to know more about Razor was one of his reasons for going. Another was that he wanted to face Katsuki. He needed to know if he could defeat him. He also had a third reason, revenge. Over the course of his time with the League, mostly with Razor, Izuku had built up a desire to get back at his former bully. He wanted to give Katsuki a taste of his own medicine. He wanted to repay him for all the years of torment he gave him. This was the perfect opportunity to do it. I don't know if he will be there or not, but I would like to know. Facing him is something I need to do. If he isn't on the list, I'll stay here. If he is, I would like to go with Tomura and Kurogiri if that's alright, he told Sensei. Sensei stared at him in silent contemplation for a minute before ordering Kurogiri to show him the list. The Shadow Man used his court to send it to Izuku. Izuku read through it quickly until he came across Katsuki's name. He's there, Izuku said. So, can I go? All for one remained silent for a minute. I suppose, he said. However, Izuku could detect a small amount of reluctance in his voice. However, you will need a costume, or at least a mask to disguise yourself. No one knows about your association with us. If your identity gets compromised, then it will be impossible for you to walk around freely like normal. Izuku nodded in understanding. Sir, is this really a good idea? Kurogiri questioned nervously. Izuku blinked, a little surprised by Kurogiri's reaction. He knew he could handle himself in a fight, so why? Perhaps it was because he would be fighting Katsuki. Given the nature of their relationship, Kurogiri's concern was natural. Deku has proven himself capable in the field of battle, Kurogiri, Sensei explained with a slight edge to his voice. If he wishes to confront his bully, then I see no reason to deny him the opportunity. It may provide him with the closure he needs. Izuku was happy to hear Sensei had faith in him, but at the same time, suspicious. The way he said it, he still sounded reluctant. It was also the way he said closure, like it was the most vital thing that mattered. Izuku wouldn't deny it was important, but the way he said it felt like there was a deeper meaning behind it. You know, I think Kurogiri's more concerned about the idiots Shigaraki hired for this job, Razor said in a mocking voice. What do you mean? Tomura demanded. They'll be perfect for this job. Oh really? Razor replied in an unnervingly calm voice. Did you run a background check on them to see if they are mentally prepared for the task? Tomura didn't answer, and surprisingly, neither did Sensei or Kurogiri. I mean, they could be suffering from some form of trauma or mental illness, Razor pointed out softly. If that is the case, do you really want them breaking down on the job because they can't handle it? After all, you never know what might trigger them. In that one sentence, Izuku felt the entire mood of the room shift. At first, it was light, but now it had switched to something much darker. Razor glared at Sensei in a way Izuku had never seen her before. Kurogiri just stared sullenly at the counter in what appeared to be shame. Tomura was unusually quiet. He had not even tried to argue with Razor on her claim. The whole thing was making Izuku uncomfortable. What the? Why are they acting this way? Did something happen? He thought. Their backgrounds have been looked into, of that, I can assure you, Sensei promised. If you would like to examine them yourself, you are more than welcome. However, perhaps we should continue this conversation privately in person. We should, Razor said. And we shall. She continued to glare at him, while Sensei never took his gaze off of her. Izuku was really confused now. Just what had happened between them. Was it something from before he joined the League? Shouldn't you at least discuss this with them first? Kurogiri asked, attempting to change the subject. Yeah. If Atrocity finds out, he'll flip, Tomura added. Izuku had an idea of what they were talking about. He knew that Afo was not the only leader in the League, however, up until now, he hadn't received much information about them. He knew their names though, Atrocity and Viper. Kurogiri deemed it fit to inform him because Atrocity, from what he had been told, possessed an extremist view of quirkless people. Don't worry about it. If Deku wishes to go, let him, but be sure to bring him back, Sensei said. You will all leave tomorrow at 10 AM sharp, so I suggest you get some rest. With that, the atmosphere returned to normal and the meeting ended. Izuku's apartment. Izuku lay on his bed. He was exhausted from the day. Razor had guessed why he was going and told Kurogiri to give her the details on his fight with Bakugo. Her only words of advice to him were give him hell, though that was all he needed. He was still confused by what happened at the bar, but decided not to investigate it. Right now, he had more pressing matters to attend to. He got up and went to the bathroom where he gazed at his reflection in the mirror. His appearance had changed in recent months. In addition to cutting his hair short, he had also dyed it black to make himself less recognizable. His body was more muscular and had a few scars, courtesy of Razor. He wore darker clothes as well. Throughout his life with the League, he had done many things. He had analyzed quirks and marked out weaknesses in ways they could be greatly improved. He had developed many types of enhancement drugs and, from what he could tell, toxins with S1. Izuku had also been working on a secret formula by himself. This was something none of the League knew about. They were willing to keep many things from him, so he didn't see why he couldn't keep one secret from them. Alright, time for bed, he said to himself. As he lay in bed, Izuku made a silent promise to himself. I will see you tomorrow, Koch-chan. And when I do, I will break you the same way you broke me. That's a promise. Izuku then drifted into a deep sleep. Izuku woke up early that morning. He quickly got dressed into his villain outfit, which consisted of a black hoodie vest, black pants, black metal arm and shin guards, and a black metallic mask that covered his entire head. He also wore combat boots and a belt with various tools such as a taser, a grappling hook and several small projectile blades. The outfit he had mostly forged himself except for the helmet, provided by Kurogiri. He had a feeling he would one day be out fighting with the League, but he wanted to make sure his identity wouldn't be compromised. Still, he was ready to face Katsuki. At the bar, Izuku met up with Tomura and Kurogiri, where he also met their large entourage. Izuku was not sure what to think of the group. He had not seen them in action yet, but at the same time, they just looked like regular thugs. What caught his attention was the bird-like creature who looked as tall and muscular as All Might. This must be the guy, he realized. Izuku didn't have much time to think, however, as Kurogiri's quirk completely absorbed him and everyone around him. Unforeseen simulation joint. They arrived at an area that had various buildings with different natural disasters going on for each one. The group of villains looked up to see the students and teachers at the entrance, who had also noticed them. Strangely enough, All Might was not present. Izuku didn't care though, that wasn't why he was here. He scanned across the students' faces until he came across a familiar one. Wearing gauntlets and an outfit that matched his personality was Bakugo, giving his usual glare. The moment he saw him, Izuku felt a sudden flood of anger. He wanted to fight him, he wanted to hurt him, however, to do that he would need to get him alone first. Kurogiri, could you warp me and you know who to an area where we won't be disturbed? He asked politely. Of course. I'll also send the students to other zones where they won't be able to interfere, he replied. Here comes Eraserhead, Tomura butted in. The pro hero launched himself at the group and started fighting off the thugs like they were nothing. Meanwhile, the students in 13 were running toward the exit. Kurogiri, Tomura started. I understand, he replied. While I'm at it, I'll send you Deku to a place for your battle. Expect that boy to be there within a few minutes. Izuku nodded. Kurogiri's power took hold again, and Izuku was in a ruined city area. It was desolate and he was on flat ground. Perfect, he whispered. Here he could fight Katsuki without interference. After waiting for 2 minutes, Kurogiri's mist appeared again, bringing an angry Katsuki with it. At first, Bakugo did not take notice of Izuku, he just swore about Kurogiri. That fucking bastard. Those fucking villains. I'll fucking kill them. He shouted. Swearing in death threats, Izuku thought. Nice to see that he hasn't changed a bit. Katsuki examined the area around him when he noticed Izuku. You one of them? He asked in a murderous tone. He didn't pay attention to his classmates, not that he needed to, they were all beneath him. Izuku answered by taking up a fighting stance. Katsuki smiled sadistically and punched his right fist into his left hand, while causing an explosion as a form of intimidation. This will be fun, he snarled. Izuku felt slightly nervous about fighting Bakugo. Give him hell. Razor's words echoed in his mind, and he was calm again. He glared at Bakugo. That's right, I've trained for this, he thought. I'm not the same weak individual that you used to be to a pulp. I'm Deku, the villain that will defeat you. With that, he charged at Katsuki. Seeing his enemy move, Katsuki started to swing his right arm. However, Izuku was prepared for this and much faster too. As soon as Bakugo swung his arm, Izuku grabbed it, turned, and flipped him onto his back. When you get someone on their back, get on top of them and punch them as hard as you can and as many times as you can. Izuku started doing just that. While doing so, every memory of Katsuki bullying came back to him, which made his punches more vicious. This is strangely satisfying, he thought. Knowing he would be knocked out soon, Katsuki released an explosion to phase Izuku, and then another one to get him off. Katsuki stood up. His mouth was bleeding from the punches. This made him pissed as hell. He screamed out in anger and unleashed a flurry of explosions on his opponent. Izuku flipped from place to place, dodging them with relative ease. This is the guy I was scared of, he thought. He couldn't believe how well he was holding his own against Katsuki. Months of training were paying off. Meanwhile, it seemed that all Katsuki had to rely on was his quirk, because he had no training whatsoever in hand-to-hand fighting. So much for having a powerful quirk, Izuku thought. Having no luck at long-range combat, Katsuki swapped to close range by rushing towards his enemy and swinging his right again. Seriously, does he think that will actually work this time, Izuku thought. However, he was wrong. Katsuki used his quirk to propel himself over Izuku. "Got you now," he shouted while successfully hitting Izuku with a lot of explosions. Izuku lay on the ground with his clothes slightly torn and a crack in his mask. "How'd you like that?" Bakugo sneered. He assumed he had won, but he couldn't have been more wrong. A few seconds later, Izuku stood up, not showing any sign of feeling injured, greatly shocking Katsuki. "No fucking way," he spluttered. Katsuki's attacks may have been painful, but they did nothing to dissuade Izuku. He was used to this sort of pain. Well, actually, he was used to much worse. Razor did not play around. Katsuki moved to attack again, but Izuku came in very quickly and kneed him in the stomach. Katsuki flinched with pain. Izuku didn't stop. He grabbed Katsuki by the shoulder and started to repeatedly punch him in the stomach, which caused the latter to vomit a little. Izuku then grabbed him by the shoulders and headbutted him so hard that part of his mask broke off, showing his right eye. In the process, he had broken Katsuki's nose, causing blood to flow from it. Izuku then let go of Katsuki, leaned back, and side-kicked him up into the air. Katsuki tried to retaliate, but Izuku was quickly behind him and grabbed him by the collar. He then ran and threw Katsuki into one of the ruined buildings, where he was sent crashing through the wall. Seeing no movement, Izuku assumed he was unconscious. "I did it, Razor. I won," he thought as he turned to leave. Izuku was hit by another explosion on the back, though this time he managed to remain standing. "Hey," came a hoarse voice. "This fight isn't over, you bastard. So don't turn your fucking back on me." Izuku turned to see Bakugo standing, blood running down from his forehead, and one or two bruises on his arms. He looked rather pitiful, like the state he'd put Izuku in for years. Oddly enough, it made Izuku happy to see him this way. I should have expected him to not go down without a fight, he thought. Katsuki stared at his opponent's eye for a moment. There was something familiar about it. Don't think about it. Just finish him off, he thought. For the first time in his life, he was hurt all over. He was used to dishing out pain, not receiving it. The whole sensation was strange, which was why he needed to finish it quickly. He held up his arm and reached for his gauntlet's trigger. They stored up his sweat, which was nitroglycerin, which allowed him to create explosions. With the amount stored up in them both, it would be like firing a rocket launcher. Izuku didn't know why, but something told him to get as far away from Katsuki as possible. If he was reaching for his gauntlets, then they clearly weren't just for show. He started running, and as he did, Katsuki shouted, "Die." From the gauntlets came a massive torrent of flames that moved very fast while consuming everything in its path. Izuku instantly pulled out his grappling hook and shot it towards the nearest building on his left. Unfortunately, the explosion was too fast for him. While he managed to avoid death, the bottom part of his legs had been burned. Izuku examined the damage Katsuki had done. It was very wide scale. What the fuck is wrong with him? He could have killed me or one of his allies, and that, Izuku thought, alarmed. "Ha! How'd you like that?" Katsuki yelled under the delusion he had won. "Okay, I've had enough of this," he said to himself. He walked toward Katsuki, who could not believe his eyes. "Why would you just stay the fuck down?" he screamed as he prepared to attack him again with his other gauntlet. Izuku was prepared this time, though. He threw one of his blades at one of Katsuki's hands, causing him to howl in pain. When you're in pain, put all your power into that point of pain and deliver the final blow. Izuku ignored the pain in his legs and charged at Katsuki. His bully tried to defend himself with his quirk, but Izuku leapt up, spun, and delivered a kick to Katsuki's face with full force. Katsuki fell back and his face landed hard onto the ground. This time he did not get up. Izuku checked his face. He was unconscious. "I won," he declared before walking off. "Kurogiri, I'm finished over here," Izuku told him over the communicator in his mask. "That's good to hear. I had a camera or two around your area, so your battle has been recorded for Razor to see," Kurogiri informed him. "All Might's here, by the way, and the pros will be here soon also. I suggest you make your way back to us at the center." "I will," Izuku replied. As he walked, he could really feel the pain in his legs. Katsuki did a better job than he thought. "I'm almost there now," he said to himself as trudged along. Suddenly he heard a scream. He turned to see a girl in pink being held to the ground by one of the thugs. She looked terrified. "Now then," the thug declared. Let's have some fun, shall we? Izuku had a very good idea of what he was about to do and headed towards him. He may have been a villain now, he may be a colder and serious person, he may be willing for heroes to die, but rape, that was a different story. Despite his time with the League, Izuku still possessed a certain degree of morality. The girl's terror increased when she saw another villain appear. The thug turned to Izuku and said, "What do you want? Can't you see I'm busy?" Izuku, annoyed with his tone, tased him in the neck, knocking him out cold. The girl was stunned at what just happened. Noticing her expression, Izuku said, "If you don't want that sort of thing to happen to you, then I suggest you run. Find your friends and get to safety." At first, she didn't move, she was still shocked. Izuku glared at her and yelled now. With that, she scrambled away while still looking at Izuku. He then turned and proceeded to where his allies were. He arrived just in time to see All Might blast that bird-like creature out of the building. There were a bunch of unconscious thugs. Tomura was also there with Kurogiri looking very pissed off. "Are you guys alright?" Izuku asked them. "Nomu got beat," Tomura raged. So that's what that thing was, Izuku realized. He made his way to them. He also looked at All Might. It was strange, his childhood idol was now his enemy and a kill target for his new group. All Might was staring at the new arrival. "Great, just what I need, and I've already gone past my limit," he thought. He inspected him further. There were burn marks over him and he was limping. He's injured, he realized. Those marks, did Bakugo do that to him? He knew the boy well enough to know what kind of damage he could deal. "I take it you finally defeated that explosion user," Kurogiri said. "They're talking about Bakugo," he thought. "Yeah, I beat him," the new villain said with pride. "I beat him to a bloody pulp." All Might tensed slightly in anger at this. "You," he said in a furious tone. The villain turned to look at him. He had a green eye from what he could see. "Relax, he isn't dead, just unconscious," the villain told him. All Might was both relieved and surprised at this. "What the hell, Deku?" Tomura yelled. "Why didn't you finish him off?" "You know very well that I don't kill," he retorted. "That was one of the conditions I set when I joined this group, remember?" Now All Might was definitely surprised. Deku wasn't a killer, yet he joined this band of villains with some conditions. Just who was he? Izuku noticed that All Might was steaming. He's reached his limit, he realized. Izuku remembered that from their last encounter All Might had told him that he can only use his power up to 3 hours a day. When he steamed, he reached his limit and reverted to his real form, something no one else knew about. Izuku did not know why, but something told him to keep his mouth shut at that moment. He was in possession of a very valuable piece of information. If he blurted this out now, All Might would most definitely know who he was. Not only that, but they were at a disadvantage with so few forces and the pros on their way. "Tomura, Kurogiri, let us withdraw for now," he told them. "We're at a serious disadvantage with him here and the pros on their way. Also, our ace was just blasted out of here, and our forces are down." The two just stared at him. "He's right, Tomura. The situation isn't in our favor," Kurogiri stated. Tomura scratched his neck in frustration. "Fine," he relented. He turned to face the symbol of peace. "All Might, beware, because your days as the symbol of peace are numbered." Tomura swore. All Might grunted in response. "We'll see about that." For some reason, though, he was still staring at Deku. From the sound of his voice, he seems to be in his teens. Also, that eye, why does it seem familiar? All Might pondered. This boy probably wasn't that much older than his students. It made him sad to think that someone that young had become a villain. Kurogiri's mist surrounded his allies, and they disappeared from the area. During the transport, however, Izuku lost consciousness. At his apartment, Izuku woke up surprised to see that he was in his apartment. He moved his legs slightly, but he felt no pain in them. He inspected his body. There were no signs that he had ever been injured. "It wasn't a dream, if that's what you're thinking," came a voice he knew all too well. Izuku looked to his right to see Sensei sitting at the table drinking what could have been tea or coffee. "Hello, Deku," he greeted the boy. "It's good to see that you're awake." "Sensei, you're here," Izuku replied, stunned. He had spoken with the man before but had never met him in person. "Why are you here?" Izuku asked before he could stop himself. Was he in trouble? Once again Sensei seemed to know what he was thinking. "You're not in any trouble. I came today to sort out a few issues with the League, and just thought I would check up on you. You came back with severe burns and have been out for nearly 2 days now," he explained. "We had to use your regeneration drug to get rid of all life-threatening injuries and scars. Otherwise, you might have died." "Thank you," Izuku replied. "However, I'm guessing you didn't come to just check up on me." He knew Sensei well enough to know that he wouldn't come here in person unless it was very important. Sensei grinned. "Observant as ever, I see," he said. "You're right, I came here to discuss something with you. Something that happened during the assault on Yue. And I'm not talking about your fight, that was impressive." Izuku sat up straight and faced him. "It's about your decision to retreat. There were cameras around the area, so I saw the entire ordeal. Well, your reasoning was logical, and the pros did show up shortly after you had left. There was something else that made me curious," he informed Izuku. Why didn't you tell the others that All Might had reached his limit? Izuku was definitely surprised now. If he knows about that, then he must have a history with All Might, he realized. He took a deep breath. He needed to be careful about his answer. It's because I knew it that I didn't tell them, Izuku explained. Oh, Sensei responded, amused. Let me point out something. I told you about my first encounter with All Might. During that encounter I learned about his little weakness. However, I also learned something else. He told me that not a lot of people know about this. Therefore, since I am one of these people, blurting it out would have led to my identity being exposed, he explained. Besides, you clearly know about it too, yet you didn't tell the others, so you're in the same boat. How did you know it? From what I have seen of you, every time All Might has been mentioned you got angry, meaning you've some sort of history with him. So, tell me, am I wrong? There was silence. Maybe I went a little too far, he thought nervously. However, Sensei started laughing. Izuku was now confused. It appears I underestimated you, Deku. You are correct with that assumption, he told the boy. Your answer for not telling the others is also acceptable. He wasn't joking either. If Deku had figured all that out from observing, then he was a lot smarter than he originally thought. My past with All Might, well, to explain I would have to tell you about my origins, something which I have no intention of doing, Sensei told Izuku. However, if you know about his weakness, then I can tell you about his quirk. Izuku shifted slightly in response. No one knew the exact details of All Might's quirk, people just assumed it was strength enhancement. All Might's quirk is known as One for All, one passed on for generations. Several days after the USJ incident, the students were buzzing with activity. After recovering from their experience, they started preparing for upcoming sports festivals, where they would get their chance to show off their quirks and skills to pro heroes, in hopes of being scouted by them. Although, some individuals did not have the same spirit. Katsuki Bakugo. Katsuki was less than enthusiastic. He was still furious about his battle with the dark dress villain. How the fuck could I have lost? I'm supposed to be the best and the strongest. But I still lost, he raged. As much as he hated to admit it, he had lost the fight, and it really pissed him off. When he woke up in the recovery girl's office, he was covered in bandages. Later that he was informed of the injuries he sustained with x-rays to back them up. That bastard did more than mess up his face. Those shots to his stomach had broken 2 of his ribs. It was the most humiliating of his life. Sure, his injuries had healed, but his pride had been damaged in a way that would never heal. Not unless he got some payback on that bastard. Damn, being beaten like that, it reminds me of how I used to kick the crap out of Deku, he thought. At the thought of his former friend, Katsuki froze stiffly. Deku, he said to himself. He remembered the villain's eyes. They were green, the same as Deku's. Then, does that mean the one I fought was Deku? He thought, horrified. He pondered over the idea for a little bit before smirking. No fucking way. That couldn't have been Deku. He's a useless, quirkless piece of shit who can't do anything right. He could never beat me, he realized. That villain must have had an endurance or strengthening quirk of some sort to be able to take that sort of damage from me. He knew Deku well enough to know he wasn't a fighter, he wasn't anything. A quirkless reject like Deku would never be able to put him in the state he was. I'm just stressed out, he decided. I should just prepare for the sports festival. It's there that I'll be able to prove to everyone at this school, no, the world, that I'm the best and the next #1 hero. Ichako Araka. Ichako wasn't overly enthusiastic about the sports festival either. Of course, she was excited and wanted to prove herself to the pros, so she would be one step closer to realizing her dream. However, she still couldn't get that villain dressed in black she'd met a few days ago. During the assault, she had been captured by one of those villains. She screamed for help, but none of her classmates or teachers was around. Then he came along, the villain in black. At first, she thought he was there to help the other one. However, she was not prepared for what happened next. Rather than help his ally, he tased him unconscious and urged her to run. The entire event had been shocking for her. She had been saved by a villain. She still couldn't believe it. The only person she had told was Elena. The two had become good friends in such a short amount of time. Why did he save me? She wondered. He's a villain, so shouldn't he be a bad person who enjoys hurting others? Her thoughts were interrupted, however, when she bumped into a large figure. It was her most famous teacher, All Might. He was wearing a suit for a meeting with the teachers. Watch where you're going, young Uraraka, you might get hurt otherwise, he cautioned her. Sorry sir, she apologized quickly before trying to move on. Hey, is something bothering you? He asked politely. You've been spaced out since the incident. At least that's what I've noticed from class. Ichako said nothing. If something is troubling you, don't hesitate to come to one of us for help. It's what we're here for, he assured her. Ichako wasn't sure what to do. Then a thought came to her. All Might was there most of the time before the pros arrived, maybe he saw him. All Might, during the assault a few days ago, did you see a villain dressed in black, wearing a broken helmet, and looked as though he had been burned by something? She asked nervously. All Might's eyes widened in recognition. Yes, actually. His name was Deku, I think. He was one of the few villains that escaped, he told her. Ichako didn't know why, but she was relieved at that information. Why, did something happen? He asked, noticing her expression. She hesitated for a moment before speaking up again. It's like this. And she explained what had happened to her. I see, he said, surprised. Well, I'm very relieved that you weren't harmed. So am I, she replied. But that's not what's troubling me. I can't understand why he, a villain, would save me. All Might gave her a contemplative look. I don't understand it either, but perhaps it was because he wasn't a completely bad person, he told her. She stared at him. You really think so, she said. All Might nodded. Villains vary in personality. Some are pure evil, some aren't, he explained. Ichako considered what he had just said and decided to accept it. Thanks All Might, she said cheerfully. No problem. When you need, come to us for help, it is what we are here for, he replied. I'd better get going then. I need to prepare for the sports festival, she told him. Good luck, he said to her as she turned and headed back to class. The staff room. Principal Nezu had called a meeting of some of the teachers at UA. In attendance were himself, All Might, Midnight, Blood King and Snipe. Namasa Tsukauchi, a detective from the police force, was there as well, giving a report on the League of Villains. He revealed that there wasn't any information on the villains that escaped. The teachers discussed Shigaraki's character as well as the Noma creature. Despite these discussions, All Might was still curious about something. Namasa, are you sure you don't have any information on the villain Deku? All Might asked his friend. No, the detective replied. There are no records on him, no previous appearances, no known crimes. It seems like this was his debut. Is something on your mind, All Might? Nezu asked. All Might stared at the desk. It's just that Deku, he was different from all the other villains, he explained. In what way? Midnight asked curiously. Everyone else there was now curious also. It's strange, but despite being a villain he didn't seem like one, he told them. Now everyone was confused. It's like this. He beat Bakugo to a pulp but didn't kill him, more like he refused to. He stated he didn't kill, and that was one of the conditions he made when he joined their group. More than that, he seemed like the reasonable member of the league since he pushed for them to retreat when the odds were seriously stacked against them, he told them. No one said anything. But that's not all, he continued. I just learned that from Uraraka that when one of the villains attempted to rape her, Deku intervened and rescued her before telling her to run. The teachers and detective were stunned at what they had just learned. The idea of a villain saving one of their students seemed absurd, yet it had happened. You're right, that doesn't seem like a villain, Blood King stated. He still attacked one of the students though, so he's still our enemy, Snipe piped up. All Might, do you have any more information you could give us? Namasa asked. The symbol of peace thought hard about his answer. His mask was slightly broken so I could see that he had a green eye. Also, from the sound of his voice, he seemed around the same age as most of the students, All Might explained. Someone that young becoming a villain, that is sad to hear, Nezu lamented. Although, from your description, he hasn't been a villain for too long. If given the right push, he could become a hero. Though that depends on him really. Everyone stared at Nezu. A villain turning into a hero was something that very rarely happened. Also, he was saying the exact same thing about Shigaraki a minute ago, but realized the naivety of it. With this boy, he seemed to think it was possible. Well, thanks for that, Namasa said. With very little information we need all the help we can get. We don't even know what his quirk is. Though that boy Bakugo thinks it was some sort of strengthening or endurance quirk. He could be quirkless, you know, Nezu told him. Everyone stared at him. I'll make a note of that, the detective replied uncertainly. The idea of a quirkless person being able to do this sort of thing seemed absurd. All Might remembered what Nezu had told a few weeks ago, about how quirkless people could be on par with those with quirks. Perhaps we should consider it a possibility, he told Namasa. Quirks aren't everything in this world. Most were surprised at his statement. Nezu on the other hand was happy that All Might was taking his words to heart. Namasa took note of that and left. The next thing the teachers did was discuss the upcoming sports festival. Shortly afterwards the meeting ended. Later that day, All Might walked to the staff room finished for the day. He was planning on watching the sports festival closely to look for a potential successor. The meeting from today was still in his mind. A quirkless person, could they really have done that? He wondered. Since his conversation with Nezu, he started to consider it more. However, part of him still found it difficult to believe, especially considering how powerful Katsuki was compared with most individuals. Can someone without a quirk become a hero? I don't think it's possible, kid. All Might stopped. That again, he thought. Ever since he talked to Nezu, he had started thinking more about that boy. He could still remember his voice. How he had admired him. His face when All Might had told him that he could not become a hero. He could have sworn tears were about to erupt from those green eyes of his. Green eyes, All Might suddenly realized. He remembered that Deku had possessed similar eyes. And his voice. All Might thought very hard about his and the boys. They're the same, he thought, horrified. He could be quirkless, you know. Nezu's words echoed in his ears. No, don't tell me. That boy couldn't be, he said without realizing it. That boy was Deku. Don't tell me I pushed him to that point, he thought. He really did not want to believe it. What am I going to do? He wondered. If he's Deku, then that means I'll have to. He knew he would have to stop him. As a hero and the symbol of peace, that was his job. He thought about it a bit more. That boy had idolized heroes, he was a good person. Deku had saved Uraraka and refused to kill. He hasn't been a villain for too long. Those facts made it seem more realistic. And he was quirkless also. As he pondered over his options, he decided to keep this to himself. Until I have more evidence I can't act, he thought. He would have to find that boy first, but how? He didn't even know his name. However, he did know what he looked like. The government has a list of people who are quirkless. Maybe I could get Namasa to show me, he said to himself. He needed to find out the truth. If that boy had become a villain, maybe there was still a way to save him. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.